Hello, everybody. Just getting set up. Please give us a like if you can hear us. Meanwhile, we're just posting the link in each of the networks, so bear with us.
We could do it Chinese style and say like, only if we reach 50 viewers, then we'll go live.
Okay.
Then we'll go live. Then we'll go live.
All right, just waiting until we get everybody on board here. If you can hear us, please make a thumbs up so we can see that everybody hears us clearly. And meanwhile, we send out some more invitations on LinkedIn and on our network as well. Okay, right now we've got 14 people on YouTube and also a couple of people from LinkedIn. Okay. Should I go and post it on the network?
I just did.
Okay. All right, I also see the first comments coming in. So Malte is here, Kenneth, Jess, Alessio. Welcome, everybody. We're still in a phase of getting set up here. Okay, right. We're getting back here. 大家好. Oh, we even got some Chinese people watching here. Awesome. Okay, let's do a quick check again. Now 18 people on YouTube and a couple of more on LinkedIn. So
people from LinkedIn, can you also maybe write a comment? Because for now, I just see the YouTube comments so far. I'm wondering if LinkedIn is working. I'll just comment.
I guess, yeah.
Oh, sad.
Yeah, so I will be doing the comments here live on LinkedIn. And then we have the other peeps which are on YouTube, and I will write it here on my computer. Felix Wamko is here as well. Awesome. Mehmet. Awesome.
I hope you guys have your beers ready.
Okay, let's just take just a little more moment until we start off with the presentation.
Ooh, it's nice. So many familiar faces.
And anyways, those who cannot join us today, they will be able to see the recording on either LinkedIn or YouTube later on. So no problem of missing out.
Reinhold's here as well. Sandra's here. Juaning Dadia, welcome. Hello to Mallorca.
Hi, Jakob. Test. I can see it. Hi. Reinhold, Sandra. Hi. Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, because this is a beer Friday afternoon event, we will pop ours now. Cheers, everybody. Welcome to Cheers and Beers with Dongxi.
What are you having? So we're having Flens today, just because it pops so nicely, and also because we like it. Actually, we should have gotten some Tsingtao.
青岛啤酒
Yeah.
在德国有吗？
Yes, of course you can buy Tsingtao Pijiu.
Echt?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Wow.
Actually, you can even buy it in Aldi's.
Okay.
Mallorca is calling.
Das gute Flens, ja.
Yeah, that's good of Lens. So next time we're going to do this live broadcast from Mallorca. Never mind the travel ban. All right, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. Let's start with the introduction, Miriam.
Cool. So, do you want to operate it? I'm afraid I did it wrong.
That's all right. Okay, now we make the screen for the presentation a little bit bigger. I hope you still see us on the left-hand side. And kick off the presentation, which will be around 45 to 60 minutes, more or less, including a couple of interactions as well, right?
Yeah, actually it's quite interactive. It's not just presentation, because we want to have this like a very active format. We want to have it engaging. We want to get in touch with you guys and the idea, and tell you a little bit more about the idea of the Inner Wednesday that's going to start next Wednesday. And this is actually the kickoff event. I assume you're all at home right now in your home office, and we are all in a difficult situation these days. So what we are offering here is kind of an alternative approach to creating the future and exchanging our thoughts on the digital economy and how things might work out in terms of being an opportunity rather than a challenge. So let's jump right into it. We're super excited to have you on the stream today, because it's actually the first time that we bring all the crowd together from all our networks. And so we want to say special welcome to our YouTube followers, because we have a huge YouTube crowd already in the US. So hello to San Francisco. We chose this time spot at 4:30 because it's early in the morning in America and it's late in the evening in China, but at the same time everyone from our network can join this event. So 4:30 is for us beer at 4. For the peeps in America, it's a good morning beer, and for the people in Shanghai and Beijing and Shenzhen and whole China, it's actually just about the right time to have probably the second beer round. Another group that we're welcoming explicitly here is our network from partners and as well as our clients, of course, because in our normal life, we are running workshops, innovation workshops. We're consultants for innovation. And we are usually doing this in Germany and China as well, as you can see here in the pictures. And then we also have a third crowd, which I am super happy to have on the stream today. These are our students, because we've been teaching in several universities the last couple of months, and are now actually also hosting some online courses. And we're happy to have you on the stream as well. So please make sure to connect all afterwards, because this is a place for engaging and coming together and learning together. So again, welcome to America, good morning. Welcome to China, good evening, and welcome to Germany and the rest of the world, whatever time it might be in your place. We also want to thank, of course, Berlin Partner and the Digital Hub Initiative, who are supporting us and are also supporting the cooperation between corporates and startups, and are especially in these times helping companies a lot to overcome these difficult times. And a little bit about the process. So right now we're having this webinar where we're going to talk a bit about the concept of Inno Wednesdays that we're going to have in the future. We're also going to talk a little bit about the opportunities that are coming up and the challenges, and we'll have a guest speaker as well. But we also want you to join the conversation. So please make sure to use the comment section either on LinkedIn or YouTube or even the Mighty Network. Afterwards, we will meet in a virtual gathering. This is, do you want to explain how it works?
Yeah, basically we have a room prepared, a virtual room in which we will share the link to this room. And if you go into this room, you can actually just join video conferences with everybody who has been in this meeting. So you can find yourself in groups, and in this kind of circle of this group will start a video chat together. So you can do like a virtual networking, just like you would have it in an offline event. You can also do one-on-one sessions. So it's actually great to get in touch with everybody who's been part of this streaming event, and hopefully kind of replicates the offline networking experience. That's the idea behind it. So we're gonna share it at the very end of this session. Yeah, and then there is also, of course, our Dongxi network, in which we also shared this live stream in the very beginning. So this is a place which you can access if you go to network.dongxi.com, and where we actually gather like all the information that we're posting in different networks. For instance, the YouTube videos that we're doing, the LinkedIn information and so on will be also as a central place at this network. And yeah, this is a source for yourself to gather this information, but also you can use it actually yourself in order to post information that you want to know or that you have with the peers in this network. So it's really not only run by us, we kind of facilitate it and moderate it, but the idea is that in the end people start actually, for instance, telling the services that they can offer, or networking between each other. So that's the bigger idea.
All right. And then a little bit about the agenda of today. So again, we welcome everyone to the stream. Please engage. Please make sure to get in touch with each other and get in touch with us. As we just said, we're going to introduce a little bit the concept of Inno Wednesday. Today's topic is going to be about macroeconomics. So we're also going to talk a little bit how the crisis has an impact on the macroeconomics of China, and an international impact, and how we can utilize this for us and turn it into an opportunity. Then we're going to have a small interview with an expert on the ground. So we activated our expert network in China and got the first voices directly from China. And then afterwards, as I said, we're going to have a Q&A. In the meanwhile, we will collect all the questions and ideas here in the chat with you, and we're going to answer them later on. Plus, we're going to move to the virtual chat room. So let's get started, I would say. So on Inno Wednesdays, this is a format that we're going to start from next week on. We want to have beers and cheers with you every week, so to get a routine. So please join us again next week at 4:30 when we're going to jump into our first Inno Wednesday. As you probably already know, because you're following us and you're here on the live stream, we are the founders of Dongxi, which is a consultancy for digital innovation made in China. And if you join us on our Inner Wednesday, we will introduce you to 7 trends that experienced a boost during the current crisis in China, and how this will have an impact on our personal life and on our professional and business life. We will also share with you inspiring benchmarks and the supporting facts and figures to the benchmarks. We will give you an in-depth analysis of innovative business models and also explain why these business models are actually innovative and what is the idea behind it. And we were going to give you a contextualization by industry experts and specialists on the ground. What we mean by that is we're going to try and have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 experts directly from China jumping into the call in the future, talking and discussing with us different views regarding those individual trends that we're going to show you. And lastly, we invite you to have a focused discourse with us and to utilize the expert network. As I said in the beginning, we have people here who are really good in China cultural studies. We have experts on every field. We have professionals, we have students. We have most of the industries already in the Mighty Network, so please get in touch with each other and make sure to connect and start really great new projects with each other. You're right here if you want to get inspired and learn about innovative business models. You're also right here if you want to gain first-hand insights and inspiring takeaways about China's digital economy. You're right here if you want to build up a foresight competence and to be prepared for the future. You're also right here if you want to pivot your sales to China. And you're right here if you want to scout investment opportunities and startups from China. And you're here if you want to be part of an inspiring professional and international expert community. Now let's jump into the idea of the Inner Wednesday. So we see the China opportunity every day, right? We go to China back and forth. We travel a lot to China. And every time we come back, we're super inspired and have new ideas and feel that we want to share more of these ideas with our community. So the Black Swan event has kind of been looming around already for quite a while. People in the stock market, traders have been expecting this event coming, but nobody knew what it would actually be and where would it come from. That's why it's called the Black Swan event. And the problem with it is that we had a lack of foresight and imagination. That's why many countries were not perfectly prepared, and that's also why many companies and people were not so well prepared. This resulted in a bear market, so we see the markets are crashing right now. There's probably going to be like a global recession. We can discuss this, and it will have many implications on our financial system and our economic success personally, and also on a country level as well. On a personal level, we all know right now we're sitting at home, so we practice social distancing and try to get our life organized as good as possible in the digital world and try to engage with our fellow students, with our co-workers, with our family via the internet, and have to work with a completely new setup, which we are not really prepared for and which is quite frustrating. So if you're frustrated, always look forward to Wednesday evening when we're going to have our beer. And this results in, because everyone doesn't really have a super good idea about how we can change the situation, it results in the blame game. So we all have heard of the media bashing right now towards different parties and people. So here we want to have to open a new opportunity and have a focus on the opportunities that always arise in crisis. And for that, we invented the Inner Wednesday, where we're going to look at the digital economy of the future. We would think that China would be super prepared or more prepared than maybe other countries because they recently experienced the SARS epidemic in 2003. And actually, in many aspects, they were really well prepared because the digital economy is already up and running really well. So most of the services of daily life are already available in the digital sphere. And also on a political level, it has been fostered for the digital transformation has been fostered by many new policies and supported by the government. So this is like a quick overview of the AI development plan of China. For 2020, they plan to be competitive in AI. This means focus on big data intelligence. This is kind of the basic structure they want to build up on AI. And mind you, 2020 is today. In 2025, they want to have bigger breakthroughs, like applications across industries and service sectors. This is actually something from what I would say, from my personal experience, that is already happening right now, right? The status of 2025 application across industries and service sectors, we can already see AI in so many services. So they actually already surpassed their plan. In 2030, they want to become a world leader in AI. And this is especially interesting for all other countries, of course, because we need to have an answer about how we want to cope with AI, where we want to have AI in our daily lives and our business lives. So the plan for the Become a World Leader in AI mainly tackles governance, social, and the industrial sector. But what me personally interests the most is the focus on application. So the difference is there is a lot of research going on AI and the application of AI services around the world. And I guess America and Germany are some very advanced companies in that respect. Countries in that respect. But what is especially interesting to me is to see how AI is actually applied in China in services. So the immediate idea about how can I develop a business for me personally behind this technology is always omnipresent. And that's for me the biggest driver and the biggest difference in the whole situation, and why China is a little bit more advanced maybe than other countries in this respect.
Yeah, and it hasn't always been like that, right? So we really would like to stress our view on China here that we both run in our YouTube channel, which is more focused on the investment aspects of China, but also we do it like in our client projects that, well, there is this kind of old picture of China, that China is the workbench of the world. And nowadays, well, what we can say is that Western companies try and go and make a market entry into China and create products for China and sell them to this new middle class that is becoming richer and richer. But this is like the perspective that we want to give you once again, both in our channel on the online media, but also in our client presentations, that the future in China that is currently being created is quite interesting in many different aspects. And today we want to give you, first of all, a broader picture of that, where we think we need to look at in the future. And then based on that, of course, in the coming weeks, we go deeper in each of those aspects. So we structure this around what we call innovation platforms. China seems to become a global player, at least, or even in a leading role in 5 key innovation platforms. And one of those platforms is what Miriam already mentioned, artificial intelligence. So what you see here is a screenshot of a news anchor in China that is completely artificial. So it's a fully virtual rendered person, and it's reading in English the news on the Chinese TV. So we already see many of those very interesting applications of artificial intelligence that are being for once tested, but also that are obviously already, fully launched operational services in many aspects. So this is just one aspect of how AI is already applied in China in a very in a very real scenario. Then another innovation platform is around biotechnology. So we have seen the development of gene-edited babies in the past that have been created in China using CRISPR technologies. So that's a method of actually first sequencing and then genomes, and then kind of editing parts of the genome, and actually thereby trying to, in this case, edit out the genes that are responsible for HIV infection. So this is another innovation platform, biotech, in which China is currently already kind of jumping ahead, leaping forward, and at some point in time also kind of going through ethical and moral barriers that we actually wouldn't cross, but that obviously in this scenario get already trespassed, and that have some implications. If one player is already doing it, then others will possibly follow as well. Another aspect or innovation platform that China is shaping is the topic of robotics and automatization. So what we're seeing here is a warehouse in China that is fully automated, using small robots that are driving around and delivering parcels within the warehouse, and everything is being super lean and operated. And this is actually something which we wouldn't expect of China, because labor and workforce is very cheap, but still China is jumping ahead here and enabling those kind of fully automatic processes, for instance, driven by e-commerce, right? As you possibly have heard, e-commerce is the Chinese e-commerce sector is the biggest one in the world. And so we also see those kind of implications happening already on an industry level in China. So robotics and automatization also in the production processes obviously will become more and more important, and China is having a leading role here in some aspects, even though they also rely on foreign technology in some aspects. We have all heard about the purchase of KUKA technologies from Germany. So it's not necessarily developed from China, but the application and the pragmatics around it is mostly happening in China. Another innovation platform has to do with mobility, and this is driven around the topic of energy storage. So with the with the fast development that we see in e-mobility, and we've seen it since a couple of years in China, actually starting with the e-scooters. But now, obviously, in the automotive world, everybody is trying to leap forward to electric mobility. China is also shaping this sector with having the biggest capacities and technologies in the terms of battery and energy storage. So this is also one of the major innovation platforms at which China is actually building applications and coming out with new players. For instance, here you see NIO as a startup from Shanghai, China. And thereby trying to take a role in the lead here, not always succeeding at that, because, for instance, in e-mobility, Tesla, in my point of view, is still in the lead. However, China has very ambitious plans there. And then as the last innovation platform we mention here is blockchain, which is kind of an ambiguous topic here, because for once, Bitcoin is, of course, blocked in China and is not allowed, but the underlying technology, the blockchain, is actually even supported by the government and by the state. So this is another we had by the end of last year, we also had the news that Xi Jinping is endorsing new developments in this area. So we will see that lots of projects and new startups coming from China will actually try and bring this technology forward and create use cases. So to summing those things up, we see that there are different platform technologies, which means that they are cross-industrial areas that are driven by technology and in which China has a unique ecosystem driven by those players, BAT, so that's Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, so an entirely new ecosystem, and in which China is currently on the move of trying to getting those technologies like from the theoretical ways into a pragmatic and more praxis-oriented approach. So now so to come back on this quickly, so this is our view of why we think China is now interesting to have a look at, and why there is so much innovation going on in China that maybe many people are currently unaware of or are not seeing it yet, and that's where we are active as consultants, obviously. But now, how do we rate this in a context of the current crisis that is ongoing? So for once, I want to have a quick take on the macroeconomic factors here. So many people are actually currently having a very negative perspective on what's currently happening on the world economics. So they're saying because of the whole Corona crisis, we will possibly go into a recession. But as we all know, China has been facing this situation before the West and is actually already kind of on a way that they got over the situation in terms of that the Corona cases are not that many anymore. And the economy has started before the economies in the West to open up again and to quit the lockdown. And as we are just starting here in Germany, for instance, with opening up again. So I want to quickly discuss the possibility of a so-called V-shaped recovery, because while this is maybe not an option that is favored by many people, most of us are possibly thinking that we are going into a recession and in deep economic troubles because of the current crisis. But I also want to give a bull case or a more optimistic case here on what could be a possibility, and that's very important given the context that I just explained about the innovation platforms and the technology that we're seeing evolving from China. For once, we've seen that before we went into this crisis, that the consumer worldwide, globally, has been actually in a very good shape. So this means the economy was doing very well. For instance, in the US, we don't have many jobless people. The stock markets has reached new highs. And this also means that we, on a global level, had very, very high savings. So because everybody was earning good money, and particularly also in China, which is known for the fact that they have very high savings rate due to the social and economic situation. So we saw this all across the board. And now we see that China may be already the first economy to recover in the second quarter. We also see, if we look at some broader macroeconomic data, that, for instance, the Purchasing Manager Index from China is rebounding. So this means that, well, even though we have to be careful about how this index is actually calculated, we do see still that there is some hope and optimism in those purchasing managers that the economic activity is actually coming back. We also see it that people are back to work. We see it in the mobility patterns in China. And this is also getting paired with the fact that before we went into this crisis, we had very low business inventory because the businesses were actually kind of preparing already for a crisis, because everybody had kind of the feeling that, well, a big crash, a recession is coming anyways. So to get this point here is that actually we had a very good consumer in a very good shape. At the same point, we had businesses who have been quite cautious because before we went into this situation, so that there's actually a good likelihood that we could actually see a strong recovery in case that everything with the lockdown and with the economic return works out well. So we see the first patterns right now. So we've been obviously closely monitoring what's been happening with auto sales in China. So Volkswagen, for instance, is reporting a good recovery now of the auto sales in China. Now production of German plants is starting again. And we see lots and lots of government interventions in terms of, lots of new funding coming in and subsidies. And the governments in general globally are just trying to help out consumers as well as businesses. So that's all positive signals here that could make the point for a V-shaped recovery if everything is working out fine. So I'm not saying that this will be the case, but I'm just saying that we should actually go ahead and prepare during this crisis for if this case is going to happen, because in our point of view, what we will be seeing then will be kind of an explosive growth and lots of innovation to be thriving. Of course, we have to take a little bit back here and say that this will not apply to all of the industries. So for instance, the automotive industry currently is being hit very, very hard, maybe not as hard as the travel industry, of course. And at the same time, other services, for instance, in the e-commerce area, are obviously doing much better during this crisis. And what we're also seeing, we're talking here between countries, between China, Germany, and the US, that some countries are dealing better with that than others. So in my point of view, for instance, China, which is digitally very savvy and very advanced, we possibly see a faster recovery, a better rebound than what we could, for instance, see in Germany, because, for instance, we already have trouble, setting up online teaching in schools because the infrastructure is simply not there, and also not the mindset of the general economy and for the people's mindset. But this is still up to the outcomes of we will see what ultimately can happen. I just want to point out here there's positive and bad kind of perspectives on that. So what should all of this mean? So for instance, we have those innovation platforms, and we possibly will have a very fast, we could see a recovery, let's say fast in terms of until the end of this year, going into 2021, we may see already a good economic recovery. And we want to stress the fact that now it's actually very interesting to look into China, what is happening, first of all, because they are first in undergoing this recovery. Second of all, that's, as I explained, is where lots of this innovation will happen along those innovation platforms. And of course, also because we see new applications that are usually not known well in the West. So to giving some examples here, we think that there are different areas of innovation that will actually get traction, even though we may see a little bit of a downturn in the meanwhile. But that doesn't mean that the innovation in those kind of areas will get taken down or stopped at all. So for instance, of course, homes are becoming the central hubs for activities, and productivity will be boosted around collaboration and online services, just like today, doing webinars. Digital employee will be kind of, the bigger picture here. So we all get used to working remote, and e-commerce plays a bigger role in order to have still sales and revenues up and running. So that would be one example in the automotive industry, where I also had a little of a report that we've done ourselves of looking at how the automotive companies in China are dealing with it, where we saw that, for instance, Tesla and NIO were doing quite well because they already have the direct consumer digital first e-commerce applications up and running. So they went better through this crisis, and they will also get faster throughout a possible recovery. So this just as an example here. Another aspect which fits to the second innovation platform that we mentioned is around genomic sequencing. So for one, and this is all based actually by research that has been done on by ARK Invest, which is a investment firm based in the US. And they are saying that we first saw that genomic sequencing has helped us to quickly identify the genomic data of the virus. So scientists could actually faster start to approach the problem this time in comparison to the MERS crisis. And this will actually foster a lot of investment in this particular area, at which, as I mentioned with the CRISPR example before from China is already thriving as well. So we should see a lot of investment going into DNA sequencing and genomic synthesis, so also the gene editing aspect of it. And this will create many new applications that are, for instance, also combined with digital services, just as consumer lifestyle-oriented services. For instance, we are monitoring a startup in Beijing that is it's called GeneBox, and they are basically selling genomic tests coupled with an app, which you get your test results, and then you can actually, based on that, buy products that help you to alleviate a couple of problems that you found out should tackle. Another one is in the area of mobility. We should see the rise of e-mobility and autonomous driving, and obviously a new kind of logistics system that will be possibly implicated on the learnings we have made about social distancing in one field. But at the same time, for instance, for the automotive OEM, we will see now that as budgets are now being cut, those players that have invested already in this new technology, for instance, the battery technology or autonomous driving technologies and so on, they have now the budgets already spent and have now a competitive advantages to those players that have now to struggle first of all with the car sales, and later on they need to pick up investing in the research and development. Another area in which China is actually striving is, if you look at the digital wallets, is Alipay and WeChat Pay. So everybody in China knows about it and is using it. This is the country with the highest adoption of the digital payment, and we think that now we will see an adoption of that also in the West, maybe first in the US with companies like Venmo and Square, and Apple Pay is thriving there. And as we all know, Germany is really struggling with this. I've been out on the market and trying to buy some stuff, and still there is no cashless possibility to pay. But I think it will be one of the outcomes of the crisis that there will be a much bigger adoption of this in the future. And this will possibly also materialize in some standards from the East being pushed into the West. And last but not least, once again, coming back to the innovation platform about robotics and automatization, this, of course, fosters some trends driven by 3D printing and industry robots that can be used during this crisis, because they, for once, can be used without a human interference in an ideal case, and also it reflects very well to the social distancing thing. So these are just some of the broader examples of the bigger shifts and trends that we see along those platforms. And these give kind of the context of our series in the next couple of weeks, which will be more about showing you some application and benchmarks that we are seeing in China that you can possibly take over to the West and apply with your own business. All right, let's jump to the next slide. Okay, so here, this has been now only my view, and of course, because of the travel ban, I have been banned from traveling to China for quite some while now. So
me too.
You too. We haven't been to China since December in the last time.
Actually, I just put away my suitcase.
Yeah. We don't know when we can go again, of course, but we always will invite experts from our field and that are actually on the ground in China, living and working there, and also get their opinion, so that not everything that we're talking about will only be our views. So this time we invited Michael from CPC, and I recorded this interview with him before. So let's jump into the interview. And
do you want to say what CPC is?
Yeah, he's introducing. So
okay.
CPC is also an innovation consultancy focused on organizational development, and they're based in Beijing. And let's jump into the interview with him. All right, there we go. All right. So hi, Michael. You are based in Beijing, in China, and you have lived through the crisis, and you're actually also a business owner in China, right? So I'm calling you today in order to get a view on what's going on the ground, and also to hear a little bit more about your personal experiences. And maybe you can start off with introducing yourself and the company and what you're doing, and then we talk a little bit about the current situation in China.
Sure, very happy to do so. Happy to also hear from you, Marcel. It's been a while since we met in person. I've been living in China now since 3.5 years again. Also through the crisis, I've stayed in Beijing. I'm running here the local subsidiary of a German change management consultancy, which is CPC. The local subsidiary is called CPC Consulting Beijing, and we are in the business of change management. So we are helping our customers to handle transformations, which obviously now is also one of the topics which is on the mind of our customers. Our team has 15 people, it's been interesting times over the last couple of weeks, definitely.
Yeah, so what's your impression of the situation? Like, how's China's economy doing?
So as yet, life is coming back to the street. The last couple of days, it was the first time that I've also been in a traffic jam on Third Ring Road, which is actually a good sign these days. A year ago, I would have thought like crazy. But now it's really a good sign because it shows that people are going back out, economy is coming back. I would say it's still ambivalent. So there are industries definitely which are directly coming back. Automotive is like currently experiencing really a boost. In March already, figures have been coming back. Some of our customers are expecting already from April figures above planned figures. And also the factories are really running as much as they can. But there are definitely other industries, especially those which are also dependent on export business to other countries, which are definitely still suffering. So therefore, it's a bit of an ambivalent picture, but the tendency definitely is positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so what was your very personal experience also as a business owner? What have you learned during the crisis? Any measures that you have taken? Tell us more about this.
Mm-hmm. So we had a couple of projects which were business critical at our customers, and they just continued. So basically, we directly switched from offline to online within just a day. And my team is also used to working online a lot, so that was basically the easier step. But also there are some workshops, especially when doing change management, which are quite complex, like doing simulations, for example. So that was also a bit of a learning curve for my team here, but they've managed very well. What definitely suffered was new contracting, because obviously companies got very cautious about spending money these days. And also contracting requires personal contact. So here we still saw with the restrictions of having not personal contact. But we see now that new projects are upcoming. So it's basically now in the recovery mode. We use this time also to relax a little bit and calm down from China speed, which usually is crazy. So there's really like weeks where you could really think more forward, where you could look into the strategic topics, where you could look into your positioning, also look a bit into, what is the weak chains in your business model. So that really helped us over the last couple of weeks to have a bit more time and to be more forward looking. And we also tried to pay this to our customers. I just gave recently a couple of webinars on the topic of reboost your organization or reboost your business, which is basically about switching the mindset from just purely recovery more towards really driving also bigger scale change. So this kind of crisis is usually also really a good chance for getting bigger things going in your organization. And a lot of changes are currently anyway going on in China. Many more parts of the value chains are being shifted here on site. It's not anymore a low-cost country. It's also becoming more and more complex because it's better embedded into the international value streams, and that also requires a lot of actually reorientation. But now it's the chance really to use the crisis also a bit in terms of thinking, how can I come back out of the crisis better than how I moved into it. So
you mentioned China speed. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the emotional side, like how are people feeling about it personally, but also in business? Like, are they more cautious or fearful, or also, like, let's say, aggressive in this kind of, forward looking and using it as an opportunity? What's the situation in China?
So the tendency is, from my perspective, that people are more forward-looking. So they rather look for the opportunities. There were many businesses that really also looked during the crisis for opportunities, whether it's by online services, by delivery services. Many restaurants did a lot of good stuff in terms of customer retention, and those now are also the restaurants that are actually fullest. So I see of lots of opportunity orientation, but my view currently is restricted to a first-tier city, which is Beijing. So I think if you look outside second, third-tier cities or beyond, I think the situation might look a bit different here. So definitely the bigger cities here, they are like one step ahead, I would say, as compared to the other country. And even I would now say what I heard also from my colleagues down in Shanghai. Actually, Shanghai is already maybe 1 or 2 steps further than Beijing, because obviously Beijing is very close to government, and there's a huge congress coming up still beginning of May. That's why policies are a bit more restrictive in Beijing as compared to the rest of the country at that time.
Yeah. All right. So my last question is, where do you see China coming out of this? Like stronger or weaker than before? What is your impression of this?
So people are here very ambitious. Most of the government, obviously, for them, the only perspective that they're taking is basically back down the growth path. So I'm looking into a direction where I see China rather coming out of the crisis stronger. But we also have to see that China is not a world on its own, right? I mean, domestic consumption is stronger than a couple of years ago, but definitely also China is still embedded into global value streams. And this means as long as the world is not recovering, this also will definitely impact the further development in China. So as long as the rest of the world is recovering, I'm having a very positive outlook, and I'm definitely seeing that China will get out of the crisis stronger than how it went into. So yeah, looking forward to the next month, and also seeing how the rest of the world develops. And what actually is a good chance, and maybe if also a bit of a message also for the people who attend this session, is if you have China operations, also use it as a chance to learn from China operations. So knowledge transfer also plays a role, because being 6 weeks or so ahead in the crisis really can convey a lot of spirit. So touch base with the China operations. It also really helps, not just on the business side, but also on the emotional side. We did a bit of that also internally with my colleagues back in CPC in Frankfurt, in the headquarters, and that was really helpful. So
great, that's awesome. That's exactly what this webinar is about. So thank you so much, Michael from CPC, for taking your time and having you even late night in Beijing right now on a Friday. Looking forward to catching up in Beijing, hopefully very soon when the travel ban is lifted. And thanks once again for taking your time.
Thanks too, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon here, live in the 3D here in Beijing. Thanks.
All right.
To Germany.
All right.
Okie dokie. So this was the video recorded with Michael in Beijing earlier today. And
we, as you heard, Michael was quite positive, actually. He saw a lot of potential in the situation as well. And he also saw that it's recovering already. And it's now time to look a little bit ahead. And I just posted one picture here, and I want to share with you, which got a lot of traction because obviously it is quite polemic, as I put it, or quite bold. I said, mask check, China versus Germany. On the left-hand side, you see my friend's mom, who was the other day walking in a park and encountered a robot who was asking her whether or not she was wearing a mask. Well, actually, she was wearing a mask, and the robot said, good that you're wearing a mask. So actually, it is equipped with the ability to detect if the person's wearing a mask or not. And my friend's mom, she was just super excited and immediately wanted to take a picture to show that she met this robot. So you see the awareness towards technology and the emotions towards technology are so different than in the rest of the world. And then on the right-hand side, you see a picture actually of the Shanghai subway station today. And I will also share a video in a minute. And you see that the government is doing everything to incentivize everyone to wear masks. So the mask is the big topic. And I think personally, even though we're not mandatory obliged to wear masks in Germany right now, I'm pretty sure this will also come in the next couple of weeks. But just to give you a quick sneak peek into what it's like to be in Shanghai today. You hover over.
It doesn't work.
But it worked with your video as well.
I don't know. Yeah, it seems like the videos are not playing here, but maybe you can describe it.
Yeah, for sure. So basically what is interesting to see is that people in the subway are using the subway just as normal as they did before. And they are actually quite close to each other, which I didn't expect. And if we look into the compound, people are still quite far away. And I talked to my friend who's currently in Beijing, just like Michael, and she said that it's quite free to move around. Even the foreigners have their own app to move around, but you need to have your temperature taken at every gate.
Mm-hmm.
So people are feeling freed by the use of technology, and everyone's really okay with accepting the technology and using an app to move around. And then the last one is an image or a video, the one she took on the street. This is also in Beijing. And it basically shows how restaurants put their table outside of the restaurant. And people are actually not so much allowed to hang around. The people that you see in the preview picture are just people who are living there. But everyone goes there to pick up their snack and pick up their lunch. And make sure that they can still go to restaurants and enjoy the restaurant food. And actually, I saw the same in Berlin yesterday, where the beer gardens are actually opening already, but you can only have takeaway beer, so everyone walks around circling the beer gardens rather than just go inside and having a takeaway beer. All right. And we brought two last examples, which I find quite impressive for the power of opportunity within crisis. And actually, I don't want to bring the Chinese thing, like in every crisis is also opportunity. But this is an example which I find super impressive. So you see the pictures here that might look like just now, but it's actually about SARS. It was in 2003, which is actually 17 years ago. And people were panicking a lot, and the virus itself was much more severe than it in its effect than the coronavirus is now. But already back then, you see that people were wearing masks and were quite conscious, and the media was all about the SARS, and people were also quite careful about how they behaved in the subway, and you got public fever measuring in public spaces already. So I'm pretty sure this is something we can expect here as well. But what happened is that the founder of JD, Jingdong, which is one of the biggest e-commerce platforms right now and one of the biggest e-retailers in whole Asia right now, already started his business. He had 12 stores. JD back then was more of an electronic supply retailer, something like maybe Media Market or Saturn here in Germany. And they only had 12 stores in Beijing, but they also had their e-commerce website already. It was mainly a website for informing people and less for selling. But during the crisis, during the SARS crisis, nobody was allowed to move or get outside of the building. So hence why he had a big problem with his business and had to close down most of the stores. But one he kept open and moved his stuff to this store. And started in QQ groups, which is the equivalent to ICQ back in the day, and he started mobilizing his business there. So he opened groups and answered questions regarding technology and sold his stuff on QQ groups. And that's how he started growing his e-commerce business. And we all know what happened from there. Jingdong is now one of the biggest players in online retail in whole Asia. So this is a case for how crisis can be an opportunity if you look at it the positive way or the creative way. Another example you all know is Mr. Ma, Mr. Jack Ma, who started out with Alibaba as being a B2B platform. So the initial idea was that he would bring together Chinese factories and manufacturers with international clients. So he already had his platform back then, which was the Alibaba B2B platform, which was mainly operating between China and the US. But the main business, because Alibaba was only 4 years old then, the main business came actually from his staff that went on the international fairs, which were back then the main place for B2B to trade. So with SARS, the fairs couldn't take place. Actually, fun fact, the fourth person in Hangzhou to be detected with SARS was an employee from Alibaba back then. And the fairs couldn't take place. So the customers from the US couldn't come. And that's when Jack Ma started pushing the online business even more. And during that time, in March 2003, he got 4,000 new members and 9,000 new listings on Alibaba.com per day, which is 3 times more than he had, 3 to 5 times actually, even more than he had on Alibaba before SARS. And for the whole year, this made him 50% year-on-year growth on daily revenues of 10 million renminbi. And we all know what came from there. He started the same year, he started Taobao, which is a B2B or a C2C actually platform. He also started Tmall. He started Alipay, which is a Chinese version of PayPal, but a little much more advanced. And Taobao Live, which is one of the major trends that we're seeing right now. So as you can see, even the biggest players that we all already know used the momentum of the SARS crisis back in the day and made global crisis their own momentum to shine. So what we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks are these 7 trends that we identified within our research that will shape the digital economy of the future. We hope that you all see opportunities in these trends, and we're extremely looking forward to engage with you about these topics and to start a fruitful discussion far away from politics, but more into innovation capacity. So the first trend we're going to talk about next Wednesday is live commerce. We're going to look at different examples of how people move their business into the online sphere and try to offer their service and their product in an online streaming environment. Then we're going to look at new retail and automated commerce. This is mainly about during the lockdown, people did not have the opportunity or were scared to go out and get their groceries and things. So new technologies were which were already there, were finally tested in the market and had their time to have the market proof ready. And I think we're going to have some really exciting interview partners for this session. Then in the week after, also quite exciting, is Virtual Social Live. What you see here is actually a live DJ set. One of the biggest clubs in Shanghai was running an online live streaming party, which had many, many followers, and it was a huge success. And this is what we're going to look at in week 3. Then we will have a, oh, sorry, that's the wrong title. Then we will look into public hygiene. So how does tech actually change the public urban environment, and where is it applied and how is it applied in China? Then we're going to look into tech-supported online teaching. How is remote schooling working in China? Which tools have been and services have been developed, and what can we learn from that? Then we're also going to look in organizational development and new work, but from a tech perspective. So we're going to have a look into the solutions that worked and into some of the fancy startups and fancy unicorns from China that actually had skyrocketing user numbers and daily active user numbers and really good screen times during the lockdown. And then lastly, we're also going to look, of course, into e-health, where we see a lot of digital innovation and business model innovation coming from China. And here you see the topics again in our flyer. You can also always sign up on our Dongxi network for this. And I would say we have a couple of questions already coming in, and let's start to go into the Q&A. How about that?
Yep. All right. So, well, today was meant as a kickoff to give you like a broader picture about why we think we should have such kind of a series and why now in these times, and show you the little topics that we're going to dive deep into each week. And now we're going to wrap this session up with some Q&A. And I've seen many comments, mostly from YouTube, actually. So let's go into it.
Can I just comment on one thing? From Oh My Lord, I also bought Pinduoduo. And I hope you also sold on the peak.
Yeah, so our YouTube crowd is possibly more interested into the Chinese stocks as in terms of an investment, and our LinkedIn crowd is more interested in the, let's say, the business model approaches and the insights that you can have and actually learning from it in order to apply it in either your own business or kind of making sense of competition and stuff like that.
And the students, what are they looking for?
I don't know, tell me.
I think the students are looking for the next big thing and the next opportunity and how they should shape their path of education, where they want to work later on.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, cool. Let's jump into the comments. So let's see what's going on. So Malte, he was asking why Baidu is not doing as many investments overseas as Tencent and Alibaba are doing. That's a good question, but so I think actually it's only Alibaba who's doing pretty good investments overseas. Even Tencent, in my point of view, is actually quite conservative. So for instance, we were also running our own e-commerce platform, and it's always been a hassle to even get WeChat cross-border payment up and running in our app. And that's because they don't offer it to foreign businesses. They don't have the corporations with banks in Germany. They have problems, for instance, with the tech and legal setup and stuff like that. So even though I love Tencent, and I'm personally also invested in Tencent about what they're doing in China in terms of investment. So for instance, they have stakes in Tesla and in NIO, but also in many other companies in the e-commerce field and so on. And I think an investment in Tesla is actually, investment in Tencent is actually almost like buying a China innovation ETF, because they are so diversified through all the investments they're taking. But coming back to your question, I think the point is that they're just in China, and Alibaba, you may know that I have once been in the news a little bit with the idea that Alibaba may do a takeover of Zalando, who is struggling here in Germany. And actually, that was in 2018 in the beginning, and only 1 month later, after I mentioned this as an idea in an interview, the Alibaba made actually the first transaction in Berlin, Germany, buying a smaller startup, and then also later on participating in a funding round with a Munich-based startup. But that was their first investment overseas. So Alibaba is really also just at the very beginning. And Baidu, obviously, coming back to your question, is not so well known for the investments that they're taking, and certainly not for any overseas investments.
I think another thing with Baidu is that they're investing a lot in autonomous driving and the infrastructure and AI. And these are very much government protected topics, which is why I think also another reason why they are focusing on China as well. You should also, maybe we can do a series about Apollo. I think this is also interesting.
Yeah, Baidu Apollo is obviously relevant when we talk about automated robotics and also autonomous.
Are you looking for the topic of the silent trends?
Not a what's
autonomous
it called?
driving.
Autonomous driving. Sorry, I'm lagging already.
No more beer for you.
No more beer for me. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, that would be a good topic to dive in, because actually most of the German OEMs are working with them, and so that's super relevant for them. But Tesla and NIO both doing different approaches here, so it's it's worth a look at. But let's jump into more questions. So one more question was by Doug Ellis about NIO-Hefei agreement, if there's any news. No, it's not signed yet. As I mentioned, I did one more video yesterday about NIO and the new EV subsidies that have been in place, which are favoring actually NIO because they are applicable to companies that are using battery swapping technology. So this is another point for NIO that is kind of good for them, and also maybe supporting the notion that there is some government support coming. But as for now, it's just speculation. And if the deal is not coming, then it will be really, really hard for NIO actually, because they're kind of still have the financial troubles, of course. Also a question regarding Luckin Coffee. Is there any news? Last time I've checked was yesterday. I didn't see it today so far, but I don't think there's anything new yet. There have been rumors, of course, about if it's starting to trade again, but there hasn't been any material news yet. Only that yesterday one of the board members was actually I think a German or a Swiss guy, because he's a CEO of Ricola. Mr. Meyer, he's been resigning from the board, which is actually not a good sign, because he's possibly not happy with the investigations going on, or he just wants to kind of save his reputation and get out of any affiliation with Luckin Coffee here. What else? Byton. Byton is a good point. You're mentioning that you like their UI, and the good thing about Byton is that really that they are very customer centric and focusing on the UI, user interface experience. And I was actually a little bit skeptical about them in the very beginning, because it's very gimmicky, and it feels like a little bit too much or too gamified in a way. But in the end, when I sat in one of their cars, actually, I had to admit that it really is a new kind of an experience. And with the entire ecosystem that they want to build around it, I think it's really interesting, and it's worth a try and worth a shoot. And I really value that they try to have this very big vision of what mobility in the future should look like. Of course, for them, it's very, very hard, I think, as it is for any new startup in the automotive world, to ramp from zero to success in a way. Only Tesla proved it, that they can do it. NIO still has to prove it, and Byton is certainly still much longer in a way. And there are currently news floating around that they haven't paid their employees from March. So that's some negative news also, that their funding round is not going so well. So we really have to see if Byton can actually manage to kick things off. I haven't seen, I have seen some pictures of that Nanjing production plant is up and running, but we haven't seen really a full launch in the market yet. So we need to watch that one. So until then, I don't think there are major competition for any of the other brands right now, until they get something on the streets, because everybody can show concept cars, everybody can show about what they want to do, but the hard thing is getting the production up and running, and then profitability in the next run. Right, then Yeah, we've been talking about JD. Yeah, you had a little mistake that JD is only in China. It's not in Southeast Asia. That's the one is Alibaba, which is in Southeast Asia and
No.
successful as well.
I meant it is really high in the rankings. So, like in comparison to all e-retailers in Southeast Asia, if you compare them all, JD is really, really high in the ranking.
Yeah, then some more questions from Eric around Neo signing. Once again, I think I just talked about this and time to buy. Well, I cannot give any investment advice here, and it's really up to your risk. And I try to educate people about what's the situation of the company right now, and then based on that, you need to really make your own decision, and that depends on how much you can invest and how much you can afford to lose. Because NEO is still a stock that could actually go to zero, but at the other hand, I see some positive signs coming up here, and I think actually, if the Hefei deal will get into place and if the funding terms are okay, then this will be a very big boost to the stock price as well. See my video on the NEO valuation there. Then your questions about iQIYI, which is currently having a couple of problems with also short sellers attacking them. Yeah, actually, I would need to look deeper into the actual numbers. I haven't invested in them yet so far. I'm not so keen on all of those streaming services. Also, Tencent Music, I haven't invested yet, which is quite interesting, of course. But I also didn't invest in their counterparts in the West so far, even though now this crisis may actually have a good, well, would be a good argument to invest in such kind of services like Disney Plus, Netflix. You know, they might go up.
I bought some Bilibili. It was really good.
Yeah. Okay, so Miriam is the one investing in streaming services. So Bilibili is kind of the counterpart of YouTube in China. Yeah, definitely interesting. But as you asking for iQIYI specifically, they are currently facing allegations by short sellers similar to Luckin Coffee that their numbers are made up and fake. Maybe that's something where we can actually dive into one of the future sessions on the in the Wednesday talks, and
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays, yeah, and also and a similar story is going on actually about GSX Tech Education, which also is a startup in the education field, in which I just bought a very, very tiny amount, but it's also facing short seller allegations that the numbers are all fake and so on. So I think the bigger picture here is that with the whole Luckin Coffee story, this really took a big hit on most of the China US listed companies. So definitely most people don't trust those entities anymore. There's many risks related to that, but we definitely have to look at each of those companies separately. We cannot generalize it, and yeah, that would be my position.
Also, I think maybe you can make another point about the danger in general in investing in foreign listed companies.
Starbucks in China, what's my view? Well, good question. Very good question. Actually, when we are in China, and I think the bigger problem and bigger thing here is that coffee is a problem in China. So
it's not a problem.
No, you don't get a decent coffee at a good price. It's very expensive.
Yes, it's very expensive. It's a luxury, but that's because it's a tea culture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but just coming as a Western person living in China, you want to get your coffee. Then in general, there is not so much choice, and Starbucks is obviously the go-to place if you want to have this standard experience. And Chinese, they love it, particularly for just Starbucks in China in general. And Chinese people, they really love Starbucks because of not so much even of the coffee, but also because of the whole environment of being in a nice place, which is usually crowded, has like this, renao, which is a term in China for, being in an area which is very noisy, that makes people feel like at home and cozy in a way. Starbucks is delivering on this proposition in a way, and also having decent coffee and is a place to be seen, definitely. But now Luckin Coffee obviously coming in here with, in my point of view, a totally different concept here. They don't want to copy just on this experience thing. They going more into the mass market and want to make coffee affordable. So that's why I think actually Luckin Coffee is on the business model side a very important, interesting thing besides Starbucks, and not necessarily only in a fight with Starbucks. Yeah.
No, I don't think so either. But also, in Starbucks is catching up a lot in China right now. They are, I think, in autumn they relaunched their membership system, which is much better and much more advanced than it was before. They also have the pickup kitchens now, which are counters similar to Luckin Coffee, which are just positioned like in other buildings, and they're not like main stores. They're just pickup counters. But in comparison to Luckin Coffee, they are much more fancy. They look like a fancy hotel a little bit. And what else about Starbucks? And of course, you should see the video that we made about Luckin Coffee, or all the videos that we made, because we also show the Starbucks experience a little bit. We went to the Shanghai Roastery, and this is really a big experience. And I think it has always been internationally, and from day one, the strategy of Starbucks to be the third place, the place where you want to go to hang out, where you feel home all over the world. And that's why I think Starbucks is a completely different concept, and it works really well as well. I'm actually quite interested if this whole Luckin thing really goes down, if Starbucks is going to buy the infrastructure, because that could be a huge boost for them. But there are also other competitors. We could also look at Costas, or there are many new coffee brands right now.
Yep. All right. One more question is from Dave regarding what is more dominant. Is it WeChat Pay or Alipay?
Good question.
Yeah. As you pointed out, so this is one of the larger trends which will now also, because of the Corona crisis, become more important here in the West, particularly in Germany. We're not so used to cashless payment and so on, and China has been leading the way here even more than the US. And a very personal view from my side is that actually I'm now tending more towards Alipay, and I see it that also more Chinese are doing it, and Alipay also kind of becoming a super app by itself. So similar to WeChat, where you can have many services within the app. So for instance, ride hailing or paying your electricity bill and so on, everything can just happen within Alipay. And also have a look at my video around Luckin Coffee, where I made the context around Alibaba versus Tencent, which are the big ecosystem players and are kind of dividing the internet in a way, and which I think also leads to the fact that, for instance, some people want to keep their private communications, for instance, in WeChat, texting with your social peers, with your friends and so on. But the things that you're buying, you may want to keep into the other system like Alipay with Alibaba, so that there is not too much linking in between the data points, even though I think Chinese users, obviously, they don't care as much as we do from a Western perspective about the usage of data by companies. However, I also see that some of the more sophisticated users in China are actually tending nowadays more towards Alipay for using for payment.
I want to add something from a foreigner's perspective. So usually we take our clients to deep dives to go to China. If we do so, naturally, we also want to show them digital payment and how well it works in China. I would say maybe 2 years ago, it was still quite easy to set up a WeChat account with payment, so with WeChat Pay for foreigners, if they come new to the country. Today, it's much harder for foreigners to set up a WeChat with a foreign account. In general, setting up WeChat plus setting up WeChat Pay. However, at the same time, Alipay is offering kind of a pay-as-you-go solution where you have an account that you can top up, I think, with 2,000 renminbi roughly, and then use the money digitally and then for digital payment, and then you can top it up again. So this is it's kind of like a tourist pass. So if you're traveling to China, this is a really convenient solution to do so. I can post you the link afterwards if you're interested. From this perspective, I really like Alipay. But if there are not many more questions, I feel we already have 1.5 hours of live streaming. We were just planning to do one. So how about we move the discussion into our chat forums? There are just a couple more. Do you want to add something? Because there are a couple of more administrative things that I want to say.
Yeah, let's just quickly follow up on the last questions because we can quickly go through them. Lucking stores, they are still open and operating. So there have been a couple of people running to the stores trying to secure the last coupons. But actually, I'm looking at the WeChat data and so on. There is still a continuous high demand for Luckin coffee, even though all this reputational issues going on. So we need to see what's happening there. Neo houses, yes, they will possibly not be so important in the US, but in China, you can watch my other videos. I'm making the case that they have helped to build a quite good reputation and a more premium appearance of Neo, which is actually quite something difficult to achieve in China, and thereby now they're trying to monetize on that. What else? Gaming in China.
Huge topic.
Yeah, much more advanced than in the West, definitely. So a lot to learn. Tencent, the big player there, they're doing such great things. But this will be actually one of the topics that we're going to talk through in our Wednesday talks.
The setup we did as a foreigner. Yes, it's I think okay if you are if you're familiar, but if you're just there for a business trip for 2 weeks, then it's really difficult. For our clients, it's difficult often.
Okay, one more comment. Once again, Byton already talked about it. I don't know, maybe you've missed it, but the short story is that they're currently, I guess, a little bit in trouble of ramping up. In general, the concept looks interesting, and I'm hoping they manage to launch in China and internationally. I've actually been part of their Europe expansion plans call. So they had big plans actually already for Europe, and this even in contrast to what Neo is doing. But at the same time, now rumors that they haven't paid the wages and not much news on the production ramp. So it's a little bit tricky here. All right, I think that's it for now.
This one?
The last one. Okay, the last question is regarding Volkswagen. So I posted some news that Volkswagen is buying a large stake in a Chinese lithium-ion battery producer. And of course, Volkswagen is ramping up. We see the ID.3 will hopefully launch this summer. They have the Audi e-tron, which is actually even launched in China as well. So in my point of view, from the legacy automakers, Volkswagen has a good leadership with Herbert Diess really pushing hard for e-mobility. So they're doing quite well there. And I do think that they're doing the right things currently in ramping up e-mobility. However, they have so many things to solve, and it's a really large ship. So it will take a little bit of time possibly. And also it will be different to what we see from those more smaller and more agile players, the startup players such as Tesla or NIO. So I don't think that they can actually close the gap in a foreseeable future in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think they can close the gap to Tesla and NIO, but they should be quite close. And actually, of course, because of their size, they should be hopefully doing well, which is actually quite important for the German economy, of course. So
I have a few more remarks,
Okay.
just in general. So before we move to the network, there are a few things that I want to ask you guys. First of all, thanks for having a beer with us. Maybe next time you can share what kind of beer you had and whether or not you can recommend it. Then I would really ask you, we introduced the topics to you, as you can see here, that we're going to cover in the next couple of weeks. That being said, we're open to new suggestions. If you have a new idea, if you have something that you want to, a topic that you want to discuss, or a person you really would like to see on the show, just let us know, drop us a line, get in touch directly, either on LinkedIn, YouTube, or our network. If you yourself want to come to the broadcast, you're happy to join us, just drop us a line for this as well. If you're joining our network now, the Dongxi network, I would kindly ask everyone to introduce yourself, even if it's just in one sentence, because it makes it easier for the others to get in touch with you. And I think we have really interesting groups, as I said in the beginning, from America, like mainly investors, and private investors, then business network from Europe, and then also business network from China, plus a lot of students who are very skilled and interesting. So please remember to introduce yourself. Yeah, that's it.
Oh my lord, please say hi to your mom and thanks for the lovely comment. And yeah, regarding Tesla Berlin, actually, my last information was that it's all going quite well. I'm luckily back in Berlin now, so actually I'm planning to go to the Gigafactory once again and actually also meeting the others who are covering the factory. So there will be some new video on this topic on our channel as well in the future. Yeah, I just copied the link to our network, which you can use. And where do we share the link to the networking? Shall we paste it in here in the comments?
Yes.
Um,
And someone is asking whether or not we can make a WeChat group. We could also do a WeChat group maybe later on, but not for now, because I think most of or part of our viewers are not on WeChat, and I would really like to have the opportunity for everyone to meet.
Okay, so I'm just sharing a link, which is yotribe.com/ID Dongxi. And if you go there, you have the chance to do one-on-one chats in groups or in a larger group. Let's see if who's coming, or maybe some people are not willing to have a video chat here, but it's a way of doing some networking because right now it's been just us broadcasting, but then with the one-on-one networking and the group video calls, we can actually do it even more interactive and kind of simulating a real networking opportunity there. Yeah, and then please go to our network as well, where I also will post the link to the group networking now. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much for bearing with us in this first kickoff event to our Inner Wednesday series. I hope you liked it.
What's the topic next week?
Well, next week it's live commerce.
Oh, well read.
So it will be about e-commerce, Tencent, Alibaba, and also others, right?
A lot of Douyin, I guess.
Douyin. Yeah.
ByteDance.
All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in our network and also in the channel where we can now do the lives, the one-on-ones. Yeah.
Cheers. Let's have another cheers. Cheers. Bye-bye.